Now is our time for meditation, so I invite you now to get things out of your lap and get those feet firmly planted on the floor and close your eyes if you're comfortable. We'll begin by taking some deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Feel your body relaxing, feel your shoulders coming off of those earlobes as you just allow the chair to support you. As we begin to quiet our minds. Breathing in and breathing out. We're going to take a little journey this morning while we're breathing and relaxing. We're going to walk down a path because we're about to meet our master teacher, our guru, the one who guides and directs us, the one that we look to for reassurance and guidance. For some of you, this person is Jesus, Buddha. Whoever it is that you see is waiting for you at the end of this path. There is a fenced-in area and there's a gate. And as you arrive, your master teacher is so delighted to see you. Your heart is filled with love and gratitude for this sweet time that you have together. And he says to you, behind this gate is the most magnificent secret garden that you could ever possibly imagine. But you're looking at this gate and it is covered with thorn bushes and stickers, and it's sort of mangled and it can't be opened the way it is. And so your master teacher says to you, it is only when our hearts are open and that love is pure within us, when we're living from that highest consciousness possible, that we can remove the obstacles that keep us from all good. And so he invites us to enter a time of quiet, to go within the recesses of our heart space, and to ask Spirit within, what am I let holding me back? What is that obstacle? And I invite you to just enter a moment of silence and ask to be shown. Ask for this barrier to be removed in the silence. At this time, your master teacher says to you, now that your heart is open and you are aware of what the obstacle is, with this love in your heart, I invite you to touch the bushes that are keeping the gate closed. And as soon as you reach out and touch the shrubbery, it just wilts away to the ground. And suddenly the latch is there, and you reach the handle and you pull open this gate and you walk through the opening. And what you see is the most magnificent, spectacular garden that you can ever imagine. The feeling that you get from seeing all the blooms, the lusciousness, the greenery, the trees, the wildlife. The place is magically alive. And you are uplifted. You feel free of burdens. You feel like an untethered soul who has just discovered the secret to life. And you are grateful for this time with your master teacher and the wisdom that you have received, because you know now, whenever you feel less than, you can enter the secret place of the Most High in your heart space, and you can ask, and you will be shown. And whatever obstacles are keeping you from your good, you will be shown, and you will be shown how to remove the barrier. And for this teaching, for this knowing, we are so very grateful. We are not victims. We are powerful, magnificent co-creators with the God of our being. And we claim it now, that we're able to live from that knowing and create the life of our dreams. And so we say, thank you, indwelling Spirit, for this sweet journey this morning, for allowing us to have this opportunity to feel and remember the presence of God that we are in expression in this moment. And so it is, and so we allow it. And now we bring our focus back into the room. And whenever you're ready, just open your beautiful eyes. A lot of you know this story about me, but there are a lot of people that may not have heard. I literally carried around a boulder for decades of my life. I had this thing that was keeping me from my good. And it wasn't until, it was like a week before I was to fly out to Kansas City for my interview to see if I could become a Unity minister, to go through that whole process. It starts with an interview at Unity Village. And I was on the table of a massage table. I was on this table at my friend Rima's house in Austin, Texas, and she's a breath worker. She's an amazing, gifted person. And she was working with my breath. And she got to some part of my heart space, and I broke into tears. I mean, sobbing kind of tears. And I wasn't even aware that that was going to happen. It just like burst out of me. And I could not figure out what was going on. And she said, "What are you feeling right now in this moment? What is it that you're feeling?" And I said, "Oh my God, I just realized I have supposed to have been a minister all of my life. That Sunday school teacher that told me when I was 8 or 9 years old that women don't become ministers in the Lutheran Church, only men do that, and that I'm going to grow up and marry some nice minister man someday." And it just dawned on me that in that moment I realized I am good enough. I can do this. I can go for what my soul has been tapping for so long. And I landed in Kansas City and I wanted to do the happy dance on the tarmac. I mean, my soul was like, oh my God, I'm really going to do this. It's like my soul was saying, thank God you finally got the message, you know, pushing it off for decades. So I did do the happy dance when I got into my room at Unity Village. It is this belief that we have that happens to us, that we take it in and we believe it to be the truth. And that's just not really the way it is. So we are living this year, Live an Inspired Life is our theme. And we're in our second week of March. And our focus for March is revealing our healing and inner peace. And so we have this life wheel of every aspect of our life that we intend to cover this 12 months. And right now we're working on our health. We're working on what are those things this particular time that we can reveal and let go of so that we can have that perfect health and that inner peace. And so how many of you are ready to identify that obstacle and let it go? Only a few. So the rest of you are living 100% on. Good. Good. Well, then you can go home now because you don't need the rest of this. I'm just kidding. I know I'm ready, and there's always like something we're working on. You know, it just is. It's because we're 100% human and 100% divine. So there's always things that we're working on in our lives. Eckhart Tolle says awareness is the greatest agent for change. And so we first have to be aware of what it is that is holding us back. And today's daily word was absolutely perfect. Did you hear it when Kara said, the light of truth will dissolve the darkness of any obstacle I face? It's like you can't make this stuff up. It's absolutely perfect. So we talk about removing the stone. I love that slide, Bob. That turned out really good. We talk about the stone because we're doing the Lazarus blueprint in our small groups right now. And so we're doing a 6-week series, and this is week 2 of the 6 steps to remove and move forward with our lives in the best possible way that we can live. And so it's biblically the stone, you know, in the Bible for Lazarus's tomb, but it's also Jesus's tomb. We'll talk about that next month in the resurrection. There's also a tomb there. There's a stone there in front of the tomb, right? So this is all metaphysical. We just use the stone. You can call it obstacle. You can call it barrier. You know what it is that's holding you back. And so I won't read all of it because this portion of the scripture is like verses 17 through 39 of John 11, but I'm just going to read you a couple of the highlights that we interpret metaphysically. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." And then a little bit later in the story, when Jesus saw Mary weeping, and the Jews who came with her were also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and also deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus began to weep. Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead for 4 days." So metaphysically, every single person, every single place, store, everything metaphysically means something to us because we look beneath the story, and that's what the Lazarus Blueprint book is all about as well. And so we know that what Jesus represents is our Christ consciousness, our highest way of being, our highest way of seeing, our highest way of living. And Lazarus, of course, we talked about this last week, he represents that place in us that's stuck. He represents that place in us that we've been stuck there for so long, it stinks, right? It stinks to be here, right? I mean, think about it. It makes sense, doesn't it? And Mary and Martha, they represent this blame game that we tend to do when things aren't going our way and we don't like the way things are. Well, it's so-and-so's fault or somebody else's fault, right? So they're telling Jesus, if you had just been here sooner, this wouldn't have happened, you know. But he waited 2 days. Remember from last week? He waited 2 days before he even left. So he made a choice because he was living from that Christ consciousness. So everyone has a role. Even those mourners who came to supposedly support Martha and Mary, they're part of that blame game too. They're actually supporting the stinking thinking because they're down in that consciousness of, oh, poor me, right? Oh, poor us, instead of seeing the good. Jesus offers a remedy. Out of loving kindness in the way that whole situation is unfolding, he says, remove the stone. Remove the stone that blocks the healing. It's our choice, you see. We can stay there and wallow in whatever that story is that we made up about how bad everything is or how bad everything looks, or we can choose a higher path, a higher road. So in order to clear the obstacle, we first have to identify it. We can't just keep going. And some of these things, you know, we think we know it is. We think maybe it's somebody done us wrong, right? We think it's something outside of us. But in actuality, it could be something buried deep in our subconscious, like what happened to me. Some well-meaning person said something to me decades ago that I took as the truth, that I wasn't good enough, couldn't possibly be, because I'm a woman. I can't do this job, right? So we take in sometimes well-meaning people say things to us when we're children, and we believe it, and it sticks with us, and we may not even be aware of it. But it has nothing to do with anything outside of us. It's always an inside job, always. So even though it may help us to stay there and sort of shield some of the pain, it is still what blocks us from the good that we deserve, which eventually will lead to our highest and best spiritual path. The Jaffolas, who wrote the Lazarus Blueprint, say in their book, only we can determine what is keeping us stuck. And they also tell us, this may sound like bad news, but it is actually good news, because it means as soon as you discover what that obstacle is, you will have taken a giant step in the direction of your freedom. They say only one entrance led into the cave of Lazarus, and only one way leads to the solution of your situation. And that is, one way is through you. There is no other way. In the book, they give some examples of people who are experiencing these different steps. And this one particular story they're telling about their friend who had a divorce, went through a divorce like 2 years ago. The husband has already got a new gal, moved to Hawaii, is having a fabulous time. And the ex-wife is not a happy person, not a happy person. She hates him. She says she hates him. She even says he makes her sick, and of course, he does. She makes herself sick by living in that place of anger and resentment year after year, you see. So what happened was, she's not only angry at her husband and the new girlfriend, she's also angry at her attorney for how everything turned out. So now those three people, you see, have moved on, and they're living their best lives. And she is in misery. Would you say she's created her own hell? Yes, so would I. She's created a hell of a life instead of an inspired life that she could have. You know, forgiveness is a very powerful thing, but sometimes people choose to stay in the darkness of their own making. Maybe they're comfortable there. Maybe they're getting something out of it. But just the act of forgiveness can cause a stone to be removed immediately in the willingness. And it's never too late, is it? Ever. My mom held on to a grudge for decades too. But the healing that took place when she let that thing go, that was so silly, that divided our family. I mean, it's just amazing what forgiveness can do. If we harbor forgiveness and resentment in our hearts, it doesn't hurt the other person, does it? It only hurts us. It's like poison, right? It's like, that's what it does to us. It blocks the free flow of God's love, which is the essence and truth of our nature. Both of these emotions are so self-destructive, hate and resentment. Again, we choose our experience. So I ask you, what is going on in your hearts these days? Is there any trace of unforgiveness or resentment or anger still lingering someplace? Because sometimes we know who it is that we think done us wrong, and we're not ready to forgive. We may even say, well, I can forgive, but I can't forget. That's not true forgiveness. Have you been there? Once or twice? Yeah, most of us. So even if we're not aware of it, we can ask, because there's things lurking in our subconscious that may not be in our conscious awareness. So what do? But we go into the silence. And we ask to be shown. We ask for it to be revealed to us. We say things like, past memories can no longer hurt me. And we create our I statements, our I am statements, powerful things that we can use every time the thought comes back into our mind and wants to rear its ugly head. We can say, I am worthy. I am worthy of love and respect and happiness. I am worthy of all good, because you are. So in unity, we know to claim it. We claim it first. Sort of like fake it till you make it. You claim your good because you know it's coming, because you're a child of God, because you're going to manifest the good that you so deserve. And you know, people say things like, oh, you know, God forgives, or they pray for God to forgive them. Do you think God needs to forgive anything? God doesn't judge. We are the ones that are judging everything all the time. We're constantly judging everything that's going on around and making up stories around the judgments that we're creating, around things that are going on around us. That is not the place that we want to be in. That's not the consciousness we want to be in. We want to be in that consciousness of loving people unconditionally, right? So you ask to be shown. You know, Charles Fillmore, one of our co-founders, said every single night before he goes to bed, he sees the faces of the ones he's had contact, and he asks for any forgiveness, for anything he might have said or done that might have had an impact on another person in a negative way. He asks to be forgiven, because he knows he's human, spiritual being having a human experience. We are the ones judging everything, because God is spirit. God doesn't judge. God is unconditional love, and that's what we strive to live from, that, don't we? From that type of consciousness, from our Christ indwelling, because I'll tell you what, this transformation business, it's a process, isn't it? We're learning things and growing all the time. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you can move into that unforgiveness and move into a place of forgiveness, you can imagine how much freer you're going to feel to have nothing tethering you to other people or other situations. So it's good to question. It's good to reflect on where we are. Have you ever had done a personal inventory? It's sort of like a list of questions you go back and you look at and you decide. It helps you figure out kind of where you are on your spiritual path. Well, it gives you sort of a baseline. So here are some questions that you can begin to contemplate what it is that's going on in your life that could help you remove some of the barriers. The first one is, do I have any justifications for staying stuck? For example, what am I getting out of this? Is there something here for me that I'm still milking it, right? Why do I need to stay in this place? What's the good? Because I have a choice, don't I, to do something other than that. The second question is, am I wasting my divine life energy playing the blame game with someone? Am I? You know that if only, if they had done this, if I'd done that, you know that whole thing that unfolds? I shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? And the third one is, when I'm thinking about an issue I want to overcome, are there any of these holding me back? Fear, habit, anger, resentment, unforgiveness? Are any of those things holding me back? Shame even. Some people have had shame in their lives that's tough for them to move through. You will feel it as you go through your list of things, and as you're sitting in the silence and you're asking, you will feel it. It will become so heavy in your heart. You'll know, oh, okay, I have some work to do around resentment. I have some work to do around anger. You'll feel it in your heart because your soul wants you to identify what your barriers are, and it wants you to move past it and move on and do other things. So this is how you do this exercise. You find a quiet space where you're not going to be interrupted anytime soon, and you go into the silence, and you take some deep breaths. You breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You get yourself relaxed and in a receptive place. You're exhaling all of that resistance, and then you move into the quiet. You tune into your body as you explore each potential obstacle and allow it to be revealed to you. And then once you have identified your boulder that needs to be removed, there are a couple of things that you can ask, a couple of empowering things that you can do to release it. Close your eyes again and breathe and see yourself removing the obstacle with ease and grace. See it, see that boulder as light as a feather. See it made out of styrofoam. Doesn't have to be hard. The first and hardest part is identifying what it is. We are overcomers. We came here to overcome the material world, to be spiritual beings. And just the fact that you're willing to do this work is a huge step. So although our Lazarus consciousness may want to hold on a little bit longer and keep us staying stuck a little while longer, that Christ consciousness of you is much, much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, and it's ready for you to be free. Enough preaching. Time for a joke. So there's this little guy, and he has run across the family Bible, and he's fascinated. He's flipping through, it has pictures and things in it, and he's flipping through this Bible, and all of a sudden, this object falls out. And he looks at it, he picks it up, and he looks at it, and he said, "Mama, look what I found." And he's all astonished by this object. And it's a piece of a leaf that has been pressed between the pages that somebody put there a long time ago. And he said, guess what? I think it's Adam's underwear. The wisdom of the young, right? So I love Emmett Fox. You know, Emmett's one of my favorites. And this is from the Ten Commandments. But I have this piece that I want to close today with. The shortcut to the presence of God is to fill our hearts with divine love for everybody, particularly people or things we do not like. The shortcut to power in prayer is to fill our hearts with divine love. The shortcut to happiness is to fill our hearts with divine love. The sure and certain way to overcome fear is to empty the heart of fear by filling it with love. Because if we are filled with love, as Jesus was, of what should we be afraid, right? Jesus was without fear, and so it can be with us. So the Jepholas say in their book, open the windows of your heart and let the fresh air in. Isn't your happiness, health, and peace of mind more important than holding on and nurturing an old grudge? It's your turn. Take away the stone. And that's the way it is. Thank you. Now is the time in our service when we get to give from the good in our lives and give back into this beautiful ministry. And so if you're here, you can take your gift in your hand, or if you have given online, you can take the little card from the back of your chair and bless it. And those of you who are giving online through PayPal or Breeze, we are so very grateful. Let's say our blessing together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so.